episode of the Crime with Kylie podcast. I don't know about you, but it is freezing. I feel like the entire US right now is just cold. Even here in California, maybe I'm a little weak, but I think 30 degrees is cold. I know in other states, like the states we're about to talk about in this video, it can get into like the negative 30s, but just wanted to point that out. So get comfy, get cozy, get your blanket, get your tea or your coffee or whatever you prefer, because this is going to be a wild ride and I have a feeling it's going to be a long one. Now, I'm so surprised that I had not heard of this case sooner. I was on Google, I was searching some true crime things, and I came across this Netflix promotion. And apparently on February 9th, there's going to be this new true crime docu-series, and it is on the case that we are covering today. I looked at the poster for it and I was like, love, stalker, got it. Gotta cover this, gotta find out everything about it. So here we are. If you happen to watch it, I guess welcome to your little sneak peek of the case. This is the case of Cari Farver, a 37-year-old who went missing in November of 2012. Now, Cari grew up in Macedonia, Iowa. And Macedonia, Iowa is an extremely, extremely small town in Iowa, I believe with a population of a little under 300 people. It was like 272, something like that, and I would imagine that it was even less back in 2012. Now, depending on what your viewpoint is about growing up in a small town, what I'm about to say can either be perceived as really good or really bad, but everyone knew everyone, especially in a town of less than 300 people. So Cari Farver and her mom were really well known. They were just a family there. Cari went to school there. Cari had her son there. And a really important characteristic about Cari throughout the years that's been highlighted by her mom, her son, and everyone who knew her is that she was incredibly smart. Okay, she was a whiz at numbers and computers. My husband, who also grew up in Iowa, is a computer whiz, but I look at the coding languages like Python, C++, and I'm like, what is this? This is all gibberish. My brain does not compute it. But her brain computed it extremely well. So well that she actually grew up to become a computer programmer. And becoming a computer programmer is difficult in itself. However, I'm about to add two more factors that make what she did even more impressive. One, she was a young mom. So she went through all of her college as well as like her career with her son. She had her son at 22 years old and his dad did not stick around. She named him Maxwell Farver, and she absolutely loves her son. We will get more into that as the video goes on. But the other thing that happened in Cari's early 20s is that she was diagnosed with bipolar disorder and depression. And these diagnoses hit Cari really hard because no one wants to hear that news. But from what her mom has said, she managed it really well, and at first she did take her medications and she was good about taking her medications for it. But her main complaint is that they made her feel numb, which is a very common side effect when it comes to depression medications and bipolar disorder medications. Like, instead of it making you feel better, it kind of just like nulls all feeling. And Cari did not like that because she was a positive person and she liked to have energy. Like, she loved to interact with people, she loved to talk, she was very personable. So she did stop taking these medications, but she had things under control. So at the time, in 2012, when she got her new job as a computer programmer, things were honestly going great for her in life. Her son Maxwell, who she just called Max, he was about to enter high school. He was 14 years old. She was very excited for him to enter high school, and she got a job an hour away in Omaha, Nebraska. And in this job, she had a project that she was working on that required her to commute. So she would make the hour commute and then she would like try to come back at the end of the day, but Max would sometimes stay with his grandparents because, you know, work late, commuting's not fun, etc. So now that we're in Omaha, Nebraska, let's talk about someone else who was in Omaha, Nebraska, having kind of a new start as well in his life. This is Dave Kroupa, and Dave had actually just gotten out of a 12-year-long relationship. He was with a woman named Amy Flora for 12 years, and they had 2 children together. So for most of his adult life, he had been in a very committed long-term relationship, which is great. But now that he was in this new season of life, he just wanted things to be different. So he picked up, he moved to Omaha, Nebraska, he became the manager of an auto body shop, and he was playing around with online dating because it was relatively new. I mean, we're only like, what, 12 years into the start of the internet. I feel like it was around that time that on the TV you were seeing like the Hinge ads, the Tinder ads, and I don't know, Christian Mingle, all that good stuff. I don't know, I've never tried it, so I don't know if good stuff is the right way to put it, but you can correct me if you've had other experiences. So he decided to try online dating, and he did not want anything serious, okay? Like, to put it bluntly, this man was looking for hookups and like just little fun dates, like let's go get coffee, let's go get dinner, but like it's nothing serious. And he would be very upfront about his intentions when he went on dates with women. And if the woman was okay with it, then they would proceed to, go on little fun dates, have hookups, etc. And one of the first women he started doing this with was Shanna Elizabeth Golyar. I don't know exactly if that's how her last name is pronounced. It's like Goylar or ER. It's like Golyar. I'm just gonna say Golyar, okay? I don't know, but things went really well with her, okay? They went on like 4 dates, they went out to coffee, they went out to dinner, and then by like the 4th date is when they like hooked up. And Liz was also, she went by Liz, by the way, because her middle name was Elizabeth, I don't know why, but she went by Liz instead of Shauna, so I'm just gonna call her Liz for the rest of the video. Liz and him hooked up by the 4th date, things were going well. They both agreed that they would kind of date on and off, but like they weren't in anything committed whatsoever. So during the 6 months that they were like initially together, they were also going off and seeing other people actively, and they knew that the other person was doing that. And Dave kind of had this little like bachelor pad there, just a small little apartment, perfect for a single dude. And things were going great. He really liked her, he was attracted to Liz. Liz was a single mom, and she had kids around the same age as his kids. And that is something as a parent that you can just like instantly bond on. I would imagine it would be hard to date someone who didn't have a kid when you had a kid, because there's just a level that like a person without a kid just doesn't understand. Now, 6 months into Dave living in Nebraska, working, getting used to this new bachelor life, that Cari Farver walked into the auto body shop, and she had her Ford Explorer with her, and it had some sort of mechanical problem. And Dave describes it as when him and Cari locked eyes, like sparks just started flying, there's like an instant connection. They were apparently both looking at her car, they looked at each other, and they just felt something. And despite this instant attraction, Dave did not ask Cari for her number, and he was kind of kicking himself after for a little bit, except for a few days later, he was on one of his dating apps, and Cari's profile popped up. Instant match, they went out to coffee right away, and things escalated pretty quickly. They went back to Dave's apartment, and they were about to like hook up, and then Cari pulled back, and Cari was just like, look, I'm not looking for anything serious, like, at all. This is just, like, for fun to me. Like, are you okay with that? And Dave, in his head, was like, oh my gosh, I just hit the jackpot. This woman is wonderful. Like, that is the perfect match. That's his ideal girl right there. And, I'm sure you can imagine what happened after that. Afterwards, Dave was walking her back to her car from the apartment. Like, what a gentleman, okay? Some points there. And as he's walking her back to her car, they come across Liz. And Liz had shown up to his apartment unexpectedly. She was just like walking up to it, and they passed each other. And the reason Liz was there is because she wanted to grab a few things of hers, because I guess she left some stuff there, but she did not tell Dave that she was coming over. And to be honest, this should not have been a shock to Liz, because for the past 6 months that they've kind of been doing stuff, they were both, Liz and Dave, were doing things actively with other people, and they were really open about that. Okay, whatever. Like, the two women passed each other, not a word is exchanged. They did not talk whatsoever. Nothing was weird. Like, I think, like, Dave kind of, like, told Cari, and Cari kind of laughed it off and was like, whatever. Because she didn't want things to be serious, so she was like, I don't care. Like, she was not intimidated, okay? She is a confident woman in her own skin. I guess that date with Cari went so well that they started dating pretty regularly, nothing serious still, but they were seeing each other, like, every day. And Dave's apartment was actually really close to where Cari worked. And so Dave, out of convenience and convenience only, invited Cari to stay with him while she was working on this project in Omaha. So that way she would not have to commute at the end of the day. And this worked out really, really well. Cari would like go to work, they'd kiss each other goodbye, he would go to work, and then, do their dating thing, whatnot, at the end of the night and repeat the process, and she didn't have to drive all the way back to Iowa. Now come November 13th of 2012, at this point they were dating for about 2 weeks and they were living together for a little bit, and in the morning Dave woke up, he leaned over, he kissed Cari goodbye because he left for work first. He went to the auto body shop, Cari was at his apartment still, everything was totally normal. And then Dave's just sitting there at work a few hours later at the auto body shop and he gets a text from Cari. And this text was like, hey, like, can we move in together? And Dave in his head is like, what? Like, this is really out of nowhere because they were super open about nothing serious, like, no, like, official moving in, if you know what I mean. And, like, Cari had this whole life back in Iowa, her son included. It did not make sense why she would send this text whatsoever. But Dave was really nice about it. He was like, I think it's too soon. Like, obviously the answer was no, but he worded it like that, so it was super nice. And then he just gets like a flurry of angry text messages from Cari. And these were messages like, fine, I hate you, I never want to see you again, I'm going to be dating someone else, like, etc. I'll put the exact message on the screen, but I'm 99% sure that was the gist. Although this text message really bothered Dave and kind of weirded him out, he had no choice but to proceed throughout the rest of his workday. And plus, he wasn't really necessarily caring too much because although he liked her a lot, they had only been dating for 2 weeks. So after his workday ended, Dave went home to his apartment and he found that all of Cari's things, including Cari, were gone. And he figured that was it, that was the end of their like little short-lived fling. Okay. However, pretty quickly, Dave started receiving hundreds, and I mean hundreds of text messages, emails, and calls per day. He would receive around 100 emails per day and like 60 text messages, and the calls were non-stop. And they were all from Cari. Now, I don't remember all these text messages from memory, so I'm going to read you some. One message said, I hate you so much that I want to drive a knife in your heart. Another read, I will destroy your life and take your happiness. And the really weird thing that started happening with these text messages is that a lot of them started being directed towards Liz. One of the emails to Dave had the subject line, would you know? The message said, she's a fat cow, she looks like she lost her puppy, maybe she'll do us all a favor and kill herself, LOL. And another really weird thing about these messages, aside from the fact that they're toxic, angry, like threatening, is that they had very, very poor grammar. Like, in this one, the word shill is just shell, like there's not the apostrophe. I don't know, they really do not read like something that Cari would write because Cari was an extremely punctual and intelligent person, and she never communicated like this previously. And as Dave is receiving all these messages, calls, emails, etc., him and Liz are now kind of dating more than ever before, and these messages, calls, emails are bringing them closer. Dave kind of feels bad. He is taking sympathy on Liz because he brought this woman into his life for 2 weeks, and now she is threatening his other unofficial girlfriend. And it wasn't long before Liz, who had never met Cari before and only seen her once, started receiving threatening calls, emails, and text messages as well. One of the emails that Cari sent to Liz had no subject, and it said, if you don't keep your hands or lips off my man, I will hurt you. And the messages I've read you are kind of the gist of all of them, threatening that she would kill both of them, that, you know, Dave is her man, da-da-da-da-da, like, just very stalkerish messages as well. One of the ones that freaked Dave out the most is when he was home, he was watching TV, he was wearing a blue shirt, and he kind of like propped his legs up on like the recliner. I'm not in my recliner, I'm looking at it, so if my eyes are off to the distance, I'm like, that's what's happening. So he's doing that, he's watching TV, and then he gets a text that's like, I see you in your blue shirt and like propping your feet up watching TV, and he was so freaked out because that is exactly what he was doing in that second, which made him think that like Cari Farver was right outside his window and he had not seen her in months. Now we're panning the subject of Cari back over to Cari's family, mostly focused on her mom Nancy and her son Max. So the first day that Cari went missing, November 13th of 2012, she sent a message to her mom being like, I'm moving to Kansas for a new job, I will not be talking on the phone, I will not be communicating, you know, that was pretty much it. And of course, like, her and her mom Nancy were so close that this was just very strange. And also the grammar, the punctuation, it was not like Cari. But her mom was kind of like, okay, because she couldn't prove that that wasn't Cari. Because from her knowledge, Cari had no enemies, she was doing really well in her job, she was doing well in life. Although Kansas was really random, considering she just got the job in Omaha, oh well, like, that was really all that she could do at that time. But as days and weeks started to pass and she was not hearing back from her daughter at all, she reported her as missing, and she tried to submit a missing persons case for her multiple times. And she especially did this when Cari started missing family events that she would never miss under any circumstances. Her son Max's 15th birthday, for instance. And with Max actually received a message from Cari on Facebook. And this message was telling him that she was moving to Kansas and that he is welcome to come with her and she will come and pick him up and take him to Kansas. And of course, he wants to be with his mom. So he's like, yes, let's do that. You can pick me up, da-da-da. And then Cari never showed up. Like, they scheduled this whole pickup time and everything, and she just never showed. And then Cari sent a whole bunch of angry text messages to her family being like, as for you, Max, like, you said you wanted to go and you never went and da-da-da, I invited you. Like, super angry text messages despite the fact that she never showed up. Like, she sounded crazy. And things progressively just got worse and got weirder. Tragically, while Cari was MIA, her father passed away, and she was of course invited to her father's funeral. She never showed up. And as for Cari's mom Nancy filing these police reports, nothing much was done about them. And this was for a few reasons. So with missing adult cases, it's very hard to actually get them processed and get them to be taken seriously because adults can leave on their own accord. Like, they don't have to tell you where they're going, what they're doing, etc. So a lot of this, especially with the text messages, the Facebook, da-da-da, her being like, I'm in Kansas, this is what I'm doing, like, she communicated where she was going, she's been in contact with her family, technically, even though no one had heard her voice. The police were like, well, she's in Kansas, she's an adult, she can do what she wants. And the other issue that, Nancy was running into is that her daughter had that bipolar disorder and depression diagnosis. So the authorities thought that she was having a mental break, like she was having a, kind of like a relapse into the bipolar disorder. That would explain the back and forth on the messages, being to her son like, I would like you to come live with me, I can pick you up, da-da-da, and then next second being like, you never showed up, I invited you, da-da-da. Like, that is what the authorities chalked it up to. But Nancy and Max knew better. Nancy knew her daughter well. She knew that her daughter loved her son, loved her family, and would not be like this. She's never acted like this. She's never texted like this. They called almost every single day before she went missing. So Nancy didn't believe this one bit. The problem was that she could not prove that something had happened to her daughter. Now, I don't think I mentioned this before, but the specific police department that handled Cari's missing persons case, at least initially, they were the Potawatomi police in Iowa. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly, but they tried to reach out to Cari in the best way that they thought they could, which was via phone. And Cari had sent them a text message back saying that she was fine and she wanted to be left alone. And obviously also because she's a grown adult woman, they were like, that's all we can do. Sorry, Nancy, your daughter just doesn't want to talk to you or come home. Now what's interesting is that there were actually two police departments that were kind of on Cari's case. The other police department, let's shift back to Omaha, Nebraska, were the Omaha police. And this is because, for obvious reasons, Dave Kroupa reported Cari as a stalker and for harassing him because he was getting hundreds of text messages, calls, and emails per day. And with this, because you would think, okay, come on Dave, just block her number, she's crazy, whatever. With every email address, number, etc. that he would block, she would make 30 different new email addresses, change numbers, etc. and always get a hold of him. There was no escaping her. And the Omaha police tried to find her, but they couldn't. She just wasn't there. And they couldn't even find her vehicle until January of 2013. So at this point, it'd been 2 months since Cari was even seen. And Dave is the one who spotted Cari's vehicle, her Ford Explorer, in a parking lot. So of course, he snaps a picture, he sends it to the Omaha police, and is kind of find her, here's her car, it hasn't been here before, but now it is. The Omaha authorities take Cari's vehicle in as evidence, they search it, and they don't find anything, at least not really. And I've seen two different sources about what this is. It was either a mint gum container or just a container of mints, and there was one singular fingerprint found on them. But the fingerprint was not Cari's, and they had no idea who this fingerprint belonged to. That was it. That was the only evidence that they found. So keep that in mind because it will become important later. So even after Cari's car was found, nothing came of it, and the harassment that Dave was facing just kept getting worse. Okay, she was now sending messages like, I'm going to move into an apartment in the same building as yours. And in another message, she even claimed that she kidnapped Liz, and there was like a photo sent to him of like an undistinguished, unidentifiable woman in the back of a trunk. Okay, so this was getting like legitimately scary for Dave. And then a few months later, on August 17th of 2013, Liz called Dave. She called the authorities and she was freaking out because her house had been set on fire, and her dog, her two cats, and her pet snake all died in the fire. And when police asked her who did this, she said Cari. And there was very clear evidence that it was Cari because soon after, a text message was sent. This message to Dave said, I'm not lying, I set that nasty whore's house on fire. I hope the whore and her kids die in it. Just, whoa, like reading that, you're like, oh my gosh, that sounds so terrifying. And also doesn't sound like Cari at all, but that's terrifying. Now by 2015, the harassment was still going on, and for quite a while between like 2013 and like early 2015, the romance between Dave and Liz just kept intensifying because all these things were just bringing them closer and closer together. But thankfully in 2015, he was kind of like, Liz, like, you ain't for me. And to escape the harassment and abuse, or at least in an attempt to, he moved to Council Bluffs, Iowa. He changed his phone number, etc. But around that same exact time period, in April of 2015, two new detectives were actually put on Cari's case in her mom Nancy's favor. These men were Potawatomi County Detective Ryan Abbas and investigator Jim Doty. And from the very start, they did not believe that Cari going missing had anything to do with her bipolar disorder or her depression. And what they really began to question in this case was whether or not Cari was actually alive at all, because no employer had seen her, her family hadn't seen her, no one had heard her voice. All that we were going off of, Cari's alive for sure, are these text messages, Facebook messages, and emails from addresses, emails from email addresses that Cari didn't even have herself, or at least she did not have prior to November 13th of 2012. Now these two detectives started going through the digital archives of the case, every text message, who they were sent to, the emails, the calls, etc., and narrowing down on, who these texts and calls were directed to. And they noticed that Liz Golyar, or Shanna, was receiving a lot of them, and she was the main focus of majority of these text messages and calls. And then one day, the two men are sitting in a station, and they notice Liz walk in the door, and she is filing a harassment report, but not against Cari. She's filing it against Amy Flora. And if you remember from the very, very, very beginning of this video, Amy Flora was Dave's girlfriend of 12 years. And obviously at this time, keep in mind, their romance had dwindled down. So why is Liz even concerned with Amy? Why is she concerned with anyone connected to Dave? What's going on? So the detectives approach Liz, and Liz is like, look, Amy has been stalking me through Facebook. She's been sending me harassment messages, and officers, I'm starting to think that Cari might not be sending these messages at all. I'm starting to think that it was Amy the entire time, and that Cari's legitimately missing. She put on this whole act of concern. She told the detectives verbatim, like I said, they only dated for 2 weeks, and I don't understand why a person would be stalking him almost 3 years later. I would find it more reasonable to believe that his kid's mom is the one, because, he'd been with her for 12 years. So she's trying to put this on Amy Flora. After that little interview, Liz left the station, and just 1 day later, she called 911 in a panic. And she said that Amy Flora had shot her in the leg. It was Amy Flora without a shadow of a doubt. But here's what Liz didn't know. Amy Flora had an airtight alibi for that exact night when she said that she was shot. And yes, Liz was actually shot, but we will find out that Liz shot herself in the leg and then put it on Amy Flora. But why? Well, the detectives fingerprinted Liz, and it turned out that that fingerprint on the mint or the gum container was actually Liz's. And they started going through her tablet and her SD card, and they found some very disturbing photos. Two of the photos were of a foot and of a thigh, and they had tattoos on them that matched the exact tattoos that Cari Farver had. Additionally, there were like tons of deleted photos of Cari's like dead body. But the thing is, they didn't have it. And also, those two detectives got Cari's car searched one more time, and they found a huge amount of blood under the passenger seat fabric. So although the blood might have been clean from the actual, from the surface level of the passenger seat, it was deeply soaked into the foam of the seat itself, as you're probably seeing on the screen right now. Additionally, they figured out that Liz had an app on her phone that allowed her to schedule text messages to be sent, some from anonymous numbers. And that would kind of explain how her and Dave would be sitting together in the same room and then receive messages from Cari Farver. Additionally, Liz had 30 plus different email addresses registered to her. So things were just not looking good for her, and her lies were blowing up in her face. And yes, if you haven't already thought already, Liz burned down her own home, killing her own dog, her 2 cats, and her snake. She is a psychotic woman. And not to mention, she made very sweet, kind, considerate, loving Cari Farver out to be this psychotic maniac. That is true evil, because for the past 4, almost 5 years, people were thinking that Cari Farver just lost it and that she was a horrible person. And her son thought that, he was abandoned by his mother. And especially, since Liz was a mother herself, I do not know what went through her mind. I guess that's kind of the point with this whole thing is, you don't know. Us normal people, not that anyone's, normal, you get what I mean. We don't think like them. We don't process things like they do, as in, being quite literally psychotic. Now, Liz, of course, was arrested for what she had done to Cari Farver. She was charged with first-degree murder and second-degree arson. Although Cari's body to this day has not been found, we do have a good idea about what happened to her. Either on November 13th of 2012 or somewhere around that time, Liz somehow got into Cari Farver's car and stabbed her to death in her own vehicle, stabbing her abdomen and her back. And you can kind of tell that this is what happened by the bloodstains alone on the seats of her car, where the blood is located. And as for how we know that she was stabbed, Liz actually wrote emails, because she was pretending to be Cari Farver, and then at some point she started pretending to be Amy Flora. So she kind of wrote this convicting email, with the POV of being Amy Flora, being I stabbed her in the abdomen and in the back. So that's how we know that. She has not verbally admitted that, but from what she wrote, that's what was found. And over those 4 years that Cari Farver was missing, Liz sent about 15,000 emails and up to 500,000 text messages pretending to be Cari Farver. She spent around 50 hours a week just to uphold this lie. Now, I was wondering, as I'm sure you are right now, why? And the main thing that is assumed is extreme jealousy and rage. You remember how I said earlier that Dave and Liz were on and off? Well, when Dave started getting with Cari, Liz became more off than on. And it seemed like throughout the years that she was pretending to be Cari, she was sending these messages to bring her and Dave closer and closer together. But you see, in 2015, when Dave really wasn't that interested in her and moved to Council Bluffs, Iowa, that is when, Liz kind of really started to snap. And that's when she messed up and she started pretending that it was Amy Flora and pinning it on her, because she just wanted her and Dave's lives just, intermingled. I don't know what I'm doing with my hands, but just go with it. And that is what's thought to be the motive. Obviously, Cari Farver did nothing to deserve this. She was innocent in all of it. Her mom, Nancy, when she found out when Liz was arrested, was so happy that finally her daughter's name was cleared, because Liz not only killed her daughter, but completely tarnished her name and her reputation. And as for Dave Kroupa, he said that he never wants Liz to be able to do this to another person ever again. And thankfully, she was given a life sentence without the possibility of parole. And even though Dave was a huge focal point in this case, you do have to remember that he actually knew the real Cari for only 2 weeks. So he said that in all of this, his heart mostly just goes out to Nancy, Cari's mom, and Cari's son, Maxwell. And despite losing his mom, Max actually did extremely well in life and has made his mom proud, or at least I'm sure that he has, because he followed in her footsteps and is now a computer programmer. He also got married and seems really happy and like he is doing well. There's also a scholarship in Cari's name now that gives $1,000 each and every year. So Cari's name is living on and her positive impact and reputation is living on. Thank you guys so much for requesting this case, for voting for this case, and for listening to the episode. I will see you guys next time. Please let me know your thoughts. And please remember that if you would like to send a case request in, my website is telemonteses.com. I will put a picture of it up here, and you can hit the little case submission request button, and I will get an instant email from you. So, thank you guys.